Welcome to this special hurricane edition of Burning Earth Radio. This is your host, Gerard Spring, coming to you from the north. So we have a very serious situation developing here with Hurricane Irma, and I want to take some time to examine this hurricane, look at its storm track, and try and tell people what's going on with this storm. This is a very dangerous storm. It's a very powerful storm. It's been building now over the past 3-4 days, and it's looking to impact here along the Florida coast, perhaps maybe continuing north the Georgia coast, the Turks and Caicos Islands, the Bahamas, perhaps these north coasts of Cuba could see some wind damage, north coast of Haiti here, as well as the Dominican Republic. Right now we're looking at the hurricane centered here off the north coast of the Dominican Republic, and this is currently a Category 5 hurricane. It's a very, very powerful storm. Has sustained wind speeds equal to that of an F3 tornado, with certain areas experiencing gusts up to 350 kilometers per hour, making those particular wind gusts the equivalent strength of an F4 tornado. It's an extremely strong storm. I haven't really seen anything quite like this. I've been studying hurricanes for a while. So I want to take some time to look at the storm track with this storm and see where it's going to go, as well as try and plot out some perspectives as to what I think this storm is going to do based on the current weather data. Currently, it is September 7th, 11 a.m. UTC. The storm center is here, and I'm just going to step forward day by day and take a look at the motion of the storm. So here we are on the 8th. Moving forward one day, we can see that the storm is still going strong here, passing over the islands. The Bahamas are pretty much square in the way. Stepping forward one more day, here is September 9th. We can see the storm is kind of continuing on this westerly track heading towards Florida. And here on the 9th, this storm will most likely do something somewhat interesting, as it's going to start to make a turn to the north here. And I want to try and explain a little bit about why that's going to occur. So I'm going to sit back here one more day and look at the 8th. And I want to go up in the atmosphere to the jet stream and take a look at the outflow of the storm. Of course, hurricanes are heat engines, and what they do is they transport heat from the surface up into the stratosphere and high troposphere. So I'm going to step up here into the jet stream and rotate here a little bit and take a look at this band of the jet stream coming down. Here you can see the outflow of the hurricane spiraling outwards from the center of the storm here in the upper atmosphere. And as you step forward day by day, we can see something very interesting happening. Here we are on the 9th. It's starting to approach this jet, which is coming over the Florida Panhandle, it seems. And then as we start to interact with this jet stream, the hurricane is going to become entrained into the jet stream, and we're going to start to see this jet stream winds begin to push, upper level winds are going to begin to push this hurricane off towards the north. We can step forward one more day and take a closer look at that. So looking at this hurricane right now, I want to try and plot out some ideas regarding intensity as well as landfall considerations and some of the things we're going to have to look for in terms of storm damage. This hurricane will most likely remain a Category 5 hurricane, and the reason that this is so is that if we step back up into the upper atmosphere, we can see there's not a lot to push this hurricane off of its trajectory and to rob it of its strength in terms of upper level winds. If we step forward day by day, we can see that until it reaches the South Florida coast here, there's not much in the way of jet stream winds to interact with the storm. I also want to take a look at the 9th because I think we're going to start to see a strengthening of the hurricane on the 9th. And the reason is, of course, we have a very calm upper atmosphere. There's not much to interact with this hurricane at this moment. It's more or less isolated element within the upper atmosphere here. You can see it spiraling outwards here. But I also want to take a look at ocean temperatures on this day. So if we step down into the ocean and take a look at ocean surface temperatures, we can see that we have extremely warm ocean temperatures all in this area. 31.1 degrees Celsius, 30.6 degrees Celsius, 30.7 degrees Celsius here off the Bahamas, also off the South Florida coast. So these are very warm waters which will continue to fuel this hurricane. So this, in combination with the lack of wind intensity, is a recipe for strengthening for hurricanes. And this will most likely keep this storm as a Category 5 all the way until it reaches the Florida coast. So I want to take a moment to look at some of the landfall and damage possibilities for Hurricane Irma as it regards to the south coast of Florida here, as well as moving along with the storm as it comes up here along the coast. So here we are on September 9th at 12 o'clock UTC. So this is about 6 a.m. Florida time. This storm is going to be cruising in towards South Florida here. And if we step forward a couple of hours, we can see that the impact of the storm is probably going to be, this is 9 a.m., this is 12 afternoon on the 9th. It's going to be probably in the afternoon or evening on September 9th. We're going to be starting to look at some wind conditions seriously picking up here along the Florida coast. And as this hurricane is sitting here, it is basically strengthening. It is sitting over very warm water. It has not yet interacted with the jet stream, and it has not yet made its turn to the north. As we continue to day by day, we're going to start to see this storm basically glance off the Florida coast here and then come up and essentially grind along this coast until it perhaps makes a landfall here along the Georgia coast or South Carolina coast. So it's not just a landfall here in South Florida, and it could potentially impact these areas up here. And one of the things that I think is interesting about the storm right now that the computer models are giving us is that the eye of the storm does not actually cross the coast here. So a lot of these areas, if it begins to move north a little bit earlier, a lot of these areas could be spared from the extreme Category 5 winds and maybe only experience Category 4 winds or Category 3 winds. One of the most important things to look at when it comes to damage from a hurricane, though, is not just the wind damage. It's also the storm surge. So I want to take a look at the storm surge, explain a little bit what that is and why it's important. So I want to go back to the landfall moment of the hurricane, or the interaction moment when it starts to get close to the Florida coast here, and step down and look at what's going on with the ocean. So I'm going to swing down here to ocean, and I want to look at this HTSGW. And what this is this is the significant wave height, or the wave height. And these hurricanes, of course, are very, very windy. And with this wind, we have a lot of water being pushed towards the shore, pushed towards the Florida coast. And we can take a look at how much this water is going to come into the coast. We can see here roughly that we have 8.72 meters of wave height here right along the South Florida coast. And this is water that is being pushed actively by the hurricane as it approaches the coast. And this, of course, causes a lot of coastal flooding, a lot of coastal damage, and a lot of these areas along the South Florida coast are, of course, very, very low-lying. So they're very prone to flood damage, especially along this area of the Florida coast here, south of Miami. So coastal flooding is going to be a big issue with this hurricane. I want to try and step forward day by day and look at how the storm surge is going to affect the coast here along particularly South Florida. So here we are on the 9th at 1800 UTC, or about noon Florida time. We're going to step forward one day. I know it says 1 month there, but we're going to step forward one day and look at this storm surge. And what you can actually see here on the Florida coast is that even though the eye of the storm might be off the coast, that a lot of this water is going to be pushed directly towards this coast. You can see here we have 10.84 meter wave height. This is about 30 feet. This is a massive storm surge that's going to be generated by this hurricane as it moves along the coast. So in addition to the issue of wind damage going along this coast due to the eye wall grinding along South Florida here, we also have a very serious threat due to wave action, and this will continue as the hurricane continues to move northward. Here on the 11th, as we have the hurricane moving towards South Carolina, Georgia coast, we also have, again, very, very high waves coming in towards the coast here, 15.54 meter waves. So this is a very, very serious hurricane, everyone. I think it's important to take a look at this very seriously moving forward. If you are anywhere along this coast, I highly suggest that you leave and evacuate, because there is absolutely no point to trying to ride out this hurricane. If you have somewhere to go, please get there now and try and get out of the way of this storm, because it's going to be very serious, and it doesn't look like it's going to weaken at all as it continues to interact with the coast of North America here. One of the things that's particularly concerning is that if the hurricane does not make landfall here on South Florida, it will most likely continue to stay a very strong storm, potentially even remaining a Category 4 or Category 5 all the way up until it hits the Georgia, South Carolina coast here. So these areas are also essentially in the crosshairs of this storm. So you can see this is a very massive storm. It's a planetary feature at this point. Looking forward at climate perspectives on this storm, if we consider the fact that we have a sea surface temperature anomaly, which is generally warmer than average by a degree or two in this entire region, we expect, of course, stronger storms. The fundamental rule of weather, of course, is that when you have more heat, you have more evaporation, you have stronger storms. And, of course, this means stronger hurricanes and more frequent hurricanes moving forward into the future. So I'm not going to say that this storm is climate change linked, but of course, weather and climate are two different things, but it's definitely something I think we'll see more of in the future, is that these storms will become more frequent and they will become stronger. So if you enjoyed this one, please hit that like button and subscribe. Stay safe out there, everyone, and I'm looking forward to having you along in the next one. Thanks so much for listening.